Hey, what's up YouTubers? Today in Helen's house and garden we're going to make sourdough starter. Sourdough starter, really easy to make. I put myself off from doing a sourdough starter because I'd looked up how to do it and so many people were saying add some flour, add some water, day 2 discard half, day 3 do something different. This is sourdough made really easy and no waste, which I think is even better. So the things you'll actually need are some strong flour, so bread flour, pair of scales, something to scoop out your flour from the jar. I'm going to use a chopstick for mixing up. You can use a spatula, whatever your preference is, an elastic band. I'll show you what that's for later. Obviously a mason jar, something to make your sourdough starter in. This is a wide mouth mason jar. They come with lids, which you can either use this one or you can use a silicone lid which has got breathable nipple top on, and I'll explain about why they need to be breathable in a minute. Also some water. This is water which is just from the tap, and I've left it to stand for a couple of hours so that way the chlorine dissipates into the atmosphere. I just think it's a lot nicer to make your sourdough starter without any chlorine being present. You can use bottled water, you can use water straight out of the tap, it really doesn't matter. So, going to put the mason jar on the scales and we're just going to zero the scales. And I'm going to put, just waiting for that to zero, I'm going to put 50 grams of strong flour or bread flour. Different countries call it different types of flour. So just a little bit more. You don't have to be particularly precise about that, so if it's just over 50 or just under 50, don't worry about it. It's not like baking a cake where you need to be a lot more precise with your measurements of ingredients. So let's pop that out of the way, and then all you have to do is put in 50 ml of water. Now you don't even have to change the setting on your scales because water weighs the same as in grams as it does in mils, so 50 grams or 50 ml of water. So just slowly pop that in. I didn't even zero my scales, so I'm just taking that up to 100. Then all you have to do is give it a stir. Give it a really good stir. Why I use a chopstick is because this is the type of jar I make my sourdough starters in, and it just goes down all the way. You're not messing around with a great big spatula in the bottom of the jar. It's a nice long utensil. So just give it a really good stir. And we're done. So let's pop that out of the way. Now you can put on the normal mason jar lid, so it's just a top and a separate screw top. And if you're using a mason jar lid, you just need to turn it so it's just tight and then ease off a little bit, because when this ferments, gas will be released, and what can happen is if you screw the top on really tight, you're going to actually cause pressure in there and you can potentially explode the jar, and that would be very messy. I'm going to use one of these silicone lids and they're very simple to use. Just pop that on the top and then screw the lid round, and you can actually screw this one on so it's tight because this nipple on the top releases any gas as it goes along. Now one more thing to do is have a label. Now I'm making this sourdough starter for my sister, and so I've named this one Freddie, Give your sourdough starter a name. It's alive. It's not quite alive at the moment, but within a few days it's going to start to bubble and actually become alive. If you name it, you're giving yourself some responsibility, so you're more likely to look after it. So Freddie, born 11th of May 2020. We're in lockdown, so I don't know when I'm going to see my sister next, but by the time I do see her, this is going to be really nice and mature. So pop that on. So you need to, tomorrow, do exactly the same thing. Take the lid off, 50 grams of flour, 50 ml of water, give it a really good stir, pop the lid on. And you do that for 5 days in a row. And then after a few days, and it depends on the temperature of where you're actually storing this, it will start to bubble and you'll start to smell a kind of sour type of smell with the aroma that's coming off the mixture. That's a good thing. That means that it's actually becoming alive and starting to become a proper sourdough starter. So we'll come back to this and I'll show you how this one progresses. The other thing you can do, I mentioned an elastic band. You can pop an elastic band, or you can even draw a marker on the jar with a pen, a Sharpie, something similar to that. If you put an elastic band or a hairband around the bottom, just approximately where the actual mixture finishes, you will start to see when it starts to ferment, because the mixture will actually rise above the elastic band. So if you've never made one before, it's a really good gauge as to when your sourdough starter is actually starting to ferment. So we'll come back to that one later. So there you go, sourdough starter, really easy to make. Give it a go. Hit like, share, subscribe. Let me know in comments if you're getting on fine, or if you've got any questions or difficulties. I'll do my best to answer you. And if you like this video and want to see some more, hit the bell, because that will give you a notification when I make a video next.